There's an adventure inside all of us. Some of us live for that adventure. Others let it take them someplace new. Your adventure begins here at Wind River Resort and Casino. Your adventure begins here at Wind River Resort and Casino.
Good morning, everyone. It looks like we are starting off the morning with some cloud cover, making for a gorgeous sunrise. By the way, share your photos from the free Weather NorCal app. You might just see your sunrise or your sunset photo right here on Coffee with Krueger, looking at a Redding Divine Sky Cam out there. Let's take a look at Lake Shastina Golf Resort. This is sponsored by Elwood Ranch. You can see some beautiful colors out there with those clouds that we do see out there this morning. And looking at Shasta Lake at Jones Valley Resort, also sponsored by Elwood Ranch. You can see some of the clouds that have moved on in this morning as well. Now the visibility is dropping just a tad out along the coast, but still mainly just that what we call stratus marine layer. We don't have the low clouds per se, but we're not seeing that fog for the most part. There has been, it looks like, a little bit of drizzle out there this morning, and we should eventually maybe see a little bit of clearing this afternoon. Let's get into your Krueger's Quitcast for your Thursday, August 20th. Temperatures right now are in the mid to even upper 60s, a bit warmer in Chico at about 72 degrees, 48 degrees for Alturas, and mid-50s for the coast. And out the door this morning, of course, we've got the cloud cover out there, making for that gorgeous sunrise that we have out there. Increasing clouds throughout the day, but overall should remain fairly dry. But there is a slight chance for a sprinkle or a light shower or two over the next 24 hours, which we'll get into that here in just a bit. But taking a look at your satellite image, you got an area of low pressure spinning off to our west. This is actually the same area of low pressure I've been talking about this week. The flow around that area of low pressure has been kind of scooping up a little bit of moisture here and there, giving us a few clouds, and we're really kind of starting to see those clouds begin to take shape a little bit more for today and tonight. Let's take a look at the HRRR forecast model, just kind of give you some perspective from a different model than our in-house model. So let's take you through midday into the afternoon. You see that little line of showers that are beginning to develop here? It's very light. So the thing is, if we see anything, you're talking about what we call virga. That's rain that evaporates before it reaches the ground. So through the day today, especially this afternoon and evening, you'll see those clouds come in. You'll see streaks coming from those clouds, right? Those streaks, it's rain. A lot of times that rain evaporates before it reaches the ground. Here, because it's so dry at the surface that it just can't really make its way to the ground. And then going into tomorrow, we may see slightly better chances for some of the higher elevations, which we'll get into that a little bit later in the deeper dive forecast. But let's take a look at our swamp cooler temperature. Should get down to about 75 degrees today, with a high today of about 98 degrees. Taking a look at today, we're dropping below 100 degrees. Certainly nice to see that. Mid to upper 90s for the most part in the valley, 80s and 90s for the mountains, and in the mid 60s, give or take, for the coast. And for tonight, we're looking at mid to upper 60s in the valley, mainly 50s for the higher elevations and for the coast. Temperatures are going to continue to drop a little bit here and averaging out in the mid to upper 90s for Redding. For Red Bluff, you'll average in the mid-90s, and for Chico, you'll probably average somewhere in the low to mid-90s for your daytime highs, not only for the next 7, but probably even 10 days. For the coast, mostly cloudy skies. There are going to be some days you'll see more clearing than others. There you can see for the inland areas, looks like you've got temperatures upper 80s, low 90s, and low 90s for Trinity County. Siskiyou County around Mount Shasta, mid-80s for your highs. Alturas, upper 80s, low 90s. And for Susanville, in the low 90s. So yeah, we're just going to kind of keep those temperatures down. And again, as I mentioned, they will stay put. Let's take a look at the latest on the fires here. And we're just going to take you right on down to the MP18 fire, where we've seen not a ton of activity coming out of the fire. We still have the evacuation orders and the warnings that we've seen throughout the week. We are now up to just under 7,300 acres, but 44% containment. Now, most of the containment on the fire is on the west side of the fire. And on the north, northwest, and southwest. So that's good because it's protecting it from the communities along Highway 96, for example, Hoopa, for example. Now you see that little stream of red? That's some of the most recent activity we've seen overnight, but this is to be expected because you see that one little area that's not filled in with the fire perimeter. The area in red there, that's filling in, and that's going to add to the acreage, obviously, but that's just kind of part of kind of helping to control that fire. So that's the overall containment that we're seeing at this point at about 44%. All right, let's take a look at the latest on as far as the distance to the communities. And as I mentioned, most of the fire containment is on the west side and south side of the fires, so that's not going to really allow that fire to move much closer to those communities. Taking a look at the bug fire, we're at 93,733 acres, still at about 94% containment. That's pretty much the same that we were at yesterday. Taking a look at the smoke forecast, that is. Now, not a whole lot of smoke out there today, just a little bit of haze, especially out towards the Hoopa area. But it looks like we are going to see a plume of smoke working its way mainly into southwestern portions of Siskiyou County, but even into northwestern portions of Trinity County. But again, we're kind of getting to the point where, yes, we're going to see those day-to-day smoke plumes. There's just not as big of plumes as they were a couple of weeks ago. Take a look at your fire weather outlook. It is elevated due to the fact, for tomorrow that is, due to the fact that we've got gusty winds, we've got low humidity, and of course still that heat out there, despite the fact that the temperatures are dropping. A fire weather watch has been issued for Friday afternoon through Friday evening, once again as those winds begin to pick up and the low humidity. So the winds, not a major issue today, just the typical afternoon breezes, but you'll notice on Friday, not only in the areas where you have the fire weather watch, but Lassen County and even in the valley, you're seeing elevated winds. That's going to elevate that fire weather risk for those areas. Then on Saturday, the winds probably not as strong. And then Sunday, again, same situation. So now we take a look at the relative humidity. Yes, it's very dry, but again, very typical. Single digits for the valley and in the single digits to low teens in the higher elevations. We're going to see a little bit of an increase in the humidity on Friday, but with the gusty winds and dry conditions, that's going to elevate that fire weather risk. Saturday, you're mainly in the low to moderate, even for the valley, and then that may elevate a little bit more coming into your Sunday. So bottom line, no major wind events, just a little bit more gusty than usual on Friday afternoon, and your typical moderate to high fire weather risk. All right, that's a look at your Krueger's Quickcast. That's a look at the latest on the fires. Let's kind of lead you into the deeper dive forecast. But first, take a look at some of the beautiful cameras around the region. Beautiful sunrise out at Shasta Lake at the Jones Valley Resort. We're looking at the Elwood Ranch sponsored sky camera here. Also the Elwood sponsored sky camera from Lake Shastina at the golf resort there, turning out to be a gorgeous start to the day. And we've got your morning clouds, as we've seen over the last several mornings, actually. Taking a look at Soda Ridge, you can see some of the smoke, but that's, of course, coming in from the fires in southern Oregon, not necessarily from what we're seeing in the MP18 fire. But there is, looking at Lassen Park, some more of those morning clouds, and we'll probably see those clouds a little bit on the increase in many areas, including out towards Butte and Glenn counties. There's a look at Main Street, Chico. Looks like traffic is pretty typical there, as well as Highway 99 at Neal Road. We've got a couple of clouds out there as well. Crescent City Harbor District, and really along the coast, we are looking at, we've got Jackie Dixon checking in this morning. Good morning from Trinidad. Every heavy marine layer making lots of moisture. So most likely maybe even seeing a little bit of drizzle out there. And I'm bummed out that the camera out at the Elk Country Resort has gone down. Boy, after about 2.5 years, it was working beautifully, but finally decided just to kind of stop working on me. But we'll hopefully maybe be able to get that back up and running. I don't know when. It's kind of hard to get to it, but we'll see. But thank you, Jackie, for checking in this morning. We've also got Tracy Sackett checking in this morning saying good morning. And we've got Curtis Brown saying thanks for your great coverage. Well, thank you for your loyalty, as you are one of the viewers that we see pretty much every morning here. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you who don't even necessarily check in, but I appreciate you checking in every morning. But there you can see some of the overcast skies that we do have along the coast. This is the marine layer, even working its way into some of those inland valleys. You're looking at Hoopa Valley there, and you can also see in the lower levels that smoke that's kind of settling in over the area. Let's take a look now at Fort Jones, and this is Scott Valley in particular. You can see some of the smoke that we're seeing. That's coming, that smoke that you're seeing there is coming in from the MP18 fire. By the way, I want to remind you that you can share your photos, sunrise, sunset, beautiful waterfall, whatever, flowers, your pets, send them from the free Weather NorCal app, that is, and all you got to do is search for Weather NorCal, download the app for free, and before you know it, not only do you have the best local app in the area, but you have got a resource and a place to share your photos, and you just might see them right here on Coffee with Krueger. Speaking of Coffee with Krueger, the primary sponsor is Wind River Resort and Casino. I want to thank them for their support.
Ready to laugh until it hurts. The legendary Gary Owen is bringing his unfiltered, unscripted, and wildly hilarious No Hard Feelings tour to the Wind River Event Center Sunday, August 30th. Voted one of the most in-demand touring comedians in the country. This event is sure to make you laugh from the start. Tickets start at just $60 plus fees. For all the details or to snag your tickets, call 1-800-280-YOU-WIN. Your adventure begins here at Wind River Resort and Casino.
All right, now it's time for our deeper dive forecast, and this is for your Thursday, August 20th. All right, so here's your headlines. Valley highs today are finally dropping below 100 degrees after really starting off the week with triple-digit heat for many of us in the valley, especially around Redding and even Red Bluff. Chico, mainly in the upper 90s. But I do expect, on average, Redding down to Chico, mid-90s. But Redding, for example, mid to upper 90s. Chico, low to mid-90s, so just depending on where you are. Also remaining dry in the long range. However, we're going to watch today and tomorrow, but nothing significant, and you'll quickly discover that. And then that marine layer for the coast, it's holding on pretty strong, actually. All right, so let's take a look at the temperatures out there right now. Mid to upper 60s in the valley with 68 degrees for Chico, 67 out in Redding, 48 for El Tourist, and 57 in Susanville. For the coast, of course, where we got that marine layer, temperatures there right now in the mid-50s. Now, the area of low pressure, I've been monitoring this area of low pressure over the last several days. We've been talking about it. It has been, over the last few days, off and on, been tapping into a little bit of moisture, giving us some of the cloud cover that we've seen over the last few days. It just hasn't really increased that humidity by much, and really, of course, hasn't brought us any rainfall either. Now, as this area of low pressure continues to move closer to us, it's going to skirt to our north and west and eventually work its way north into Canada. And then, of course, weaken at that point. But this may introduce just enough instability that I think the main impact will be, number one, cooler temperatures, number two, added cloud cover, and maybe, just maybe, squeezing out just a little bit of moisture. So there's the area of low pressure skirting to our north and east. It's really not showing any rainfall. You see how most of the rainfall is off to our north and east, way to our north and east. And then we've got dry conditions through next week. This is next Wednesday, next Thursday, next Friday, still looking at those dry conditions. So let's take a look at Futurecast. Take a look at that storm system as it does skirt toward north and west. Chances for showers increase, but those chances are very, very slim. Let's take a look at that. So here we are today at 5 p.m. A little bit of a line of showers. Number one, or actually a few things. As I mentioned, it's a weak storm system, fairly moisture starved, but it has just enough moisture to give us a little bit of that cloud cover that we're going to be seeing here for today. Now, you see this? This is most likely going to evaporate before reaching the ground. It's so dry at the surface that you'll probably see through a good portion of the day kind of these passing showers, but they'll be in the clouds. You'll see the streaks coming from those clouds. Then it evaporates once it reaches the ground. Now, there are a few spots, especially in some of the higher elevations, and especially for tomorrow morning, say around Siskiyou, Trinity County, could see a stray sprinkle. All right, but overall, most of this will be evaporating. There you can see that line then pushing itself back to the east, and maybe a passing sprinkle or a light shower for parts of Trinity and Siskiyou County. Then that pretty much fizzles out. By Friday night, you're looking at dry conditions once again, and then we're dry through the weekend. Look at the coast, by the way, and this is kind of nice to see. You can see a little bit of clearing coming in for your Sunday afternoon, so it looks a little bit more pleasant there. All right, let's switch gears, talk about temperatures now. Heat dome over the desert southwest. That's trying to build in, but it can't. Why? Because this is here. So that moves out to the north and east. That still keeps that heat and pushes it a little bit more to the south and east. Now, once that moves out, we've got another reinforcing shot of some cooler air diving to the south. What that's doing is preventing this heat from building in. So there's a bit of a tug of war going on between the two, and that's going to keep our temperatures at bay and prevent us from getting back into the triple digits for the valley. And as I mentioned, on average, we'll be in the mid-90s. So you can kind of see these temperatures going up and down through the month of August. We remember the first week and a half or so, we were well over 100 degrees, and then temperatures did drop last week, especially toward the end of last week into the last weekend, into the upper 80s to around 90. But then we saw another increase this week before we see air get back down to closer to normal. So what we're going to start to see here is the orange boxes are above average temperatures. The blue boxes are below average temperatures, and near average is the gray boxes, right? And I think we're going to be looking at more gray boxes here for today, tomorrow, and going into the weekend as well. In fact, take a look at that 10-day trend. The normal high for Redding is 98 degrees, all right? So we're going to pretty much be right around or just below that for the next 10 days. Stagnant weather pattern moving on in. Let's take a look at those lake levels. And yes, this is actually interesting. Even though we're still seeing these lakes progressively drop through the summer season, that's normal, right? We actually did see this go up from 96% of historical average to 97. That's good. And here's the reason why, because people start getting worried, right? Especially as we get toward the end of the summer. We've been using the water that the lakes have been filled up with the water that we saw from last winter and even some of the snow melt, right? And we start to see them get lower and lower. And it looks not so great, right? But we have to remember that's normal because we've got to use that water. That's what it's there for, right? We just don't want it to sit there. We got to use it, and we want to use it, and we need it. So it's good that we still are looking at very healthy lake levels because we're really right around 100 to even a little over 100% of average, especially out towards Trinity Lake. So the wave heights, they're dropping a little bit over the next 24 hours, so we don't have to really be too concerned about any small craft advisories. But if you do need to be out there fishing, whether it's a small or even a larger craft, you are going to be looking at that fog out there. So just be aware of that. Winds fairly calm from the northwest at about 5 knots. Your neighborhood forecast, sponsored by Dignity Health and Grange Co-op. Look at that, no triple digits to speak of. We're talking generally in the 90s, and we'll keep it that way and drop our temperatures down a little bit more going through next week. For the coast, temperatures generally in the low to maybe some mid-60s, partly to mostly cloudy skies, morning drizzle and fog. There you can see a little bit of smoke, especially in northeastern Humboldt County, northwestern Trinity County, and southeastern portions of Siskiyou County. Speaking of Siskiyou County, your highs for today are going to be generally in the 90s, 91 degrees for Weed, although about 89 for Mount Shasta City. Mount Shasta, you're going to average out in the mid-80s for the next 7 to even 10 days. For Modoc County, you're going to average out in the upper 80s for your daytime highs after still a few low 90s here for today and tomorrow. In the eastern mountains, a big spread between Violo with a high of 80, 95 in Susanville, 90 in Paradise, and Quincy about 95 degrees today. And for the valley neighborhood forecast to the south, temperatures about 95 degrees for Los Molinos and Chico. And speaking of Chico, let's take a look at your 7-day forecast. Temperatures actually dropping a little bit more. We're generally going to be in the low to mid 90s over the next 7 days. All right, you can see about 93 degrees on Saturday, 95 on Sunday. Overnight lows should be in the low to mid 60s. All right, there's a look at your forecast up to the north. No triple digits. That's always nice to see, although still pretty warm in the upper 90s for those daytime highs. But there's your 7-day forecast for Redding. We'll just average out the mid, maybe even some upper 90s in there as we go over the next 7 days. So really can't complain too much about these temperatures. They're not too terribly hot. They're pretty much close to normal for this time of the year. So really no big complaints. I guess my only complaint is I don't have a whole lot to do here in the Weather Center because it's not a whole lot to talk about. But we are, of course, monitoring and checking that potential for some light chances for showers. And this is that time when I got to put my seat back up. For light chances for showers for tonight and into tomorrow in some areas, but overall, don't cancel any outdoor plans. Don't count on much in the way of rainfall. National Weather Service is including a chance for thunderstorms in Trinity County. I don't know if I'm buying that just yet. I would say maybe a sprinkle or two, but that's really going to be the extent of it. Let's take a look at some of the different things that you can celebrate. National Calendar Day. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it before I show it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have got National Bacon Lovers Day, which, by the way, I was very fortunate enough to have lunch with Kenny Elwood and his family and some friends, and enjoyed some great food over there. Had some clam chowder, and he shared with me his BLT. I don't normally do a lot of BLTs, but man, that one was good. So I celebrated, I guess, Bacon Lovers Day one day early. National Radio Day. If you got a radio, turn it on. Enjoy some of the local radio stations in the area. And some of my favorites, K Shasta. And of course, we got some of the partners that I have here at Weather NorCal. Let's take a look at those, as a matter of fact. And that would be, as I mentioned, K Shasta, 106X, and News Talk. 1670 AM, 105.7 FM, and also 104.9 FM. So you can check out all those radio stations. But by the way, I do morning updates with all of those radio stations in the morning for weather. So you can hear me on those radio stations as well. National Hazy IPA Day. Sounds good. National Accessible Air Travel Day. Oh, accessible Air Travel Day, okay. And there you go. Ooh, August 20th, we've got National Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. Not just pecan pie, but National Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. I'll have to go over to From the Hearth and see if they make chocolate pecan pie. We'll see. But maybe I'll do a little survey to see if we can find some chocolate pecan pie and see if we can do a little taste test. There you go. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Something to think about for today. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us today. I do expect that it's going to be a pretty nice day. Yes, a little on the warm side, but it's typical for August. But at least we're not talking triple digits. And we got a gorgeous sunrise. Take a look at that. I absolutely love it when we got a little bit of cloud cover out there in the morning and even in the evening, because what does that do? That gives us these gorgeous, gorgeous sunsets. Well, I hope you all have a great Thursday. Today for me is Thursday. It's dessert day, so I look forward to having something sweet to eat. And I hope you all have a sweet day today as well. Have a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.